This is crazy. My wicked husband took brutal revenge after he found out that I was cheating on him.
Ruthless husband gave me some unique punishment for my cheating behavior. When I created my Reddit account, I never thought the day would come when I would sit down in front of my computer and write about myself. I used to read the life experiences of other people and open my mouth at the things they wrote. Some of the stories I read were funny and some were emotional. The funny thing is that I now have a life experience to share, but mine is far from funny. Please bear with me if this ends up being too long. My emotions are getting the best of me, and this is my way of controlling myself. I am not here to talk about how innocent the first am. I am far from innocent and I caused most of what happened to me, but it is what it is. I just realized that I am married to a very wicked man. He is ruthless and does not have a forgiving spirit. I did not know that the man I have been living with is so wicked. How could anyone treat their own wife with so much hatred? Yes, I cheated on him and I have been cheating on him for a very long time. I know that writing this on Reddit will bring me a lot of judgment and curses, but I am ready for them. A lot of people will tell me how stupid and heartless I am. I know this because I used to read the comments under the posts of other people. Now that I am the one in the position to be judged, I understand it is not that easy. My husband, M43, and I, F33, have been married for 10 years now. I never planned on getting married at 23, but my life did not go as planned, so I had to settle down. I met my husband when I was 20 years old. I was already in college back then, and I had a lot of friends. I come from a family of 5. I have an older brother and a stepsister. My father had gotten another woman pregnant while he was still married to my mom, so I have a little sister. The old man was poor, but he could not control himself, so he brought in a liability. I don't mean my little sister is a liability, but the consequences around her birth were. My father could not even pay for our dinner back then. He worked at his friend's car wash business and barely earned money. My mother was and still is the sole provider of the family. She was a high school teacher but took many side jobs to sustain the family. We were barely managing to survive, so when my father brought in another child, life became difficult. I only got into college because my older brother made sure I did. I made some friends in college and was able to blend in. College was like my escape from home because my parents had a screaming match every evening. It was either about money or something very unnecessary. I met my husband one day in college when he came to fix something in our college. He's a technician and was the college's usual choice when they wanted something fixed. To be honest, I did not look at my husband twice the first day I saw him. He was not someone that interested me. I didn't even notice him until one of my friends told me he had been staring at me. It was so funny that I laughed out loud that day. I thought my friends were crazy because I knew I had no interest in being with a technician. I had no business with him. My husband walked up to me one day and told me he liked me. I was with my friends that day and it took everything in me not to laugh in his face. I do not consider myself hot or sexy, but I was confident enough to know I did not find my husband attractive in any way. I told him I had a boyfriend and left him standing in the hallway. When I got home that day, I narrated everything to my mother and she laughed at the situation too. I did not tell her he was a technician. I just told her a guy who had to be a dozen years older than me asked me out. At 20 years old, I already dated more than 2 guys. I was far from being a virgin at that age, but I was not a slut. I still had some self-respect left in me. My husband did not approach me after that day and we lost all contact because he stopped coming to our college for repairs. I didn't notice his absence and went back to living my life. The next time I met him was almost 6 months later. I was in my second year of college and followed my brother to get some tools for the bike he bought. I did not feel the need to ask my brother how he got a bike because I assumed he had enough money for it. He was sponsoring me to college, so I imagined he had enough for himself. I met my husband at the tool shop that day. He was also getting some tools. My brother greeted him like they had known each other for years. They did not. Men just feel the need to give a bro hug to a total stranger because they were looking for the same set of tools. To be honest, I was embarrassed to see him there because of how I turned him down before. He smiled at me and asked how I was, and I asked him why he stopped coming to our college. He told me he got busy and was starting his own mechanic shop. That was why he was at the store to get some tools. We spoke for a while before I left with my brother. I ran into him many times after that, and so we exchanged phone numbers. We started as friends, and he clearly told me he wanted more, but I was not ready for a relationship with him. I got the shock of my life when my brother told me he could no longer fund me to college. I cried myself to sleep that day. My brother told me he ran out of money, but the truth was that he had been stealing his boss's money. Yes, my brother had been stealing from his boss. His boss did not notice until my brother got the bike. He got suspicious because he knew how much my brother received as a salary, and that was how he got caught. We were in debt and had no money to survive. I did not tell my husband what was going on in my family because I was too ashamed. We were just friends back then, but my husband asked me out some weeks after that. I don't want to be one to lie, so I will tell the truth. I started dating my husband because I was broke. He earned enough to feed himself and buy me gifts. I am not ashamed to say the truth because I had no choice. My family was in debt and I was on the verge of dropping out of college. I was desperate for survival, so I stuck to the only saving grace I had. I finally told him about my college fees, and he asked me to give him time. Weeks later, he gave me the money for my college fees. I was so grateful for that, and I got a side job at a restaurant so I could make some money. I got married to my husband while I was still in college. He proposed to me 1 year later, and I said yes. He was the support system in my life, and I could not say no after everything he did for me. My parents also convinced me to get married to him and not lose the opportunity. I know some people will come to the comments and ask me why I did not just get married to a wealthy millionaire if I was broke. This is real life, not Hollywood. Marrying a rich man in the real world is not easy. You don't just run into a rich man who falls in love with you and marries you instantly. I went with the safest option, and that was my husband. He told me he was ready to settle down, and I had no problem with settling down too. I don't have Kim Kardashian's looks, so the chances of me running Kanye West were slim. After we got married, I was able to finish college 2 years later. My husband was not the extra romantic type. He did buy me flowers and take me on romantic dates. He never did any of those things before we got married, so I didn't really expect any of it. I found it hard to get a job even with my college degree, so I started working at the restaurant I used to work in before full-time. I did not love my husband, but I cared for him. Our marriage was just a marriage. We were not head over heels for each other. He cared and provided for me, and I did the same. I gave birth to my first child 5 years ago, a baby girl. I stopped working during that time because my husband insisted we did exclusive breastfeeding. It was exhausting to breastfeed and work at the same time, so I became a housewife. Even after my daughter was old enough to go to the nursery, I did not resume working. It was my decision because I found the restaurant very exhausting. My husband did not have a problem with it at all. He even sent some money to my family once in a while. We lived in a rented apartment, but we fed very well. It was a huge upgrade from the life I had before I married him. I got my first job as a teacher at an elementary school, and I was happy to finally leave the house. I found the job easier than the one at the restaurant. The school is where my cheating story began. I cannot mention the name of the school for personal reasons, so please bear with me. I had a crush on one of the teachers in the school. I can already tell how much backlash this will get. Yes, I had a crush on a fellow colleague at work even though I was married. My husband is 10 years older than me. He doesn't like most of the things I like. I still feel young and I don't want to live a boring life. It was my choice, but I got married at a very young age. I still had a lot about life I had not seen, so when my colleague asked me out, I accepted. He knew I was married, but he still asked me out anyway. We dated privately because I did not want anyone at school to find out what was going on. I know I should not have cheated on my husband, but I did. I wanted to feel the excitement my marriage lacked. It had nothing to do with how my husband treated me. It was just a decision I made. I know, I know. I am a loose woman, but what could I do? I could not resist the temptation. I dated my colleague for months before we broke up. There was no particular reason for it. We just decided to end things. I did not end my cheating there. I met someone else and we started dating. In the beginning, I felt very ashamed of myself, but as time went on, I couldn't care less. My husband did not seem to notice any of it, so I continued. The money I earned from elementary school was not much, but it was still money I could use for important things. My husband is the sole provider of the house, and I did not use my money for anything. It is not something I am ashamed of because I believe that a man should be the one providing for the family. I promised myself not to end up like my mother, who slaved herself away just to help my father, and he ended up cheating on her. I saved all the money I earned in my bank account. I did not really know what I was saving for, but I knew I wanted to start buying bags and things I could not afford before. I had been saving for 4 years and never touched the money unless my family needed help or I wanted to get myself something new. It might seem unbelievable, but it is the truth. My husband provided for the house from the little he earned. He did not complain, and I did not think he should have a reason to complain. Maybe I am too heartless in my judgment, but that is as a result of the trauma I saw my mother go through. In a way, I do feel like I am like my father, who betrayed my mother even when she fed him. The only difference is that I did not get pregnant and bring the child to my husband's house. Did I feel guilty? Yes, a part of me did feel guilty, but that was until my husband decided to be wicked. I thought I was not going to get caught, but somehow, my husband found out I was cheating. I did not have texts or phone calls that could have implied I was cheating, but he still found out. I noticed some changes in the way my husband related with me for weeks. He stopped eating the food I prepared and preferred to eat out. 1 week ago, my husband came home early and told me he needed to use my phone to call someone since they were not picking up his calls. I found it weird because my husband never used my phone before, but I unlocked it and gave it to him. I had no reason to worry because I did not have any chats or calls that suggested I was cheating. I did not even save my partner's number in my phone. I did not stand there and wait for him to use it because I did not want to act suspicious. I went to the kitchen and pretended I was busy making a salad. He called me when he was done and gave me back my phone. I forgot all about that encounter because there was nothing suspicious, but something happened 3 days ago. I got a debit alert of over $10,000. That's all the money I had been saving for 4 years. I thought I was seeing stars at first, but it was true. All my money was wiped except for the remaining $200. I thought I was running crazy and I could barely breathe. That was practically my life savings. I ran to my bank to ask what happened. They told me there was no suspicious activity and that it was just a withdrawal. I thought I had been scammed, but the truth was that my husband was the one who made the withdrawal from my bank. He took my card PIN from my phone. I can't be the only one who saves my passwords in my phone in case I forget, right? Well, it cost me a lot. I wanted to scream and scratch anything because I could not understand what happened. Everything I worked for was gone. When my husband came back that day, I did not waste time in accusing him of stealing from me. He laughed in my face and told me that was what I got for cheating on him. He found out I was cheating from a friend of his who worked at my partner's place of work. I used to visit my partner at his place of work because I thought it was safer there. He was aware for a long time but kept it a secret so he could hatch his plan and pay me back. He accused me of using him to provide for my family and feed myself while I cheated and saved my money. If you are wondering how he knew about the money I saved, let me tell you how he knew. He knew I had to be saving because I was not providing for the house. My husband knew how much I earned from my job, so he took revenge on me. He left the house after laughing in my face and has not returned since then. I might be a cheat, but my husband is heartless. He stole from me. I saved that money for 4 good years. That's all I have, yet he took it as compensation for me cheating. I am so angry and worried, and I don't know what to do. I don't even know if my marriage is over. Update. I can't believe that it's already been 2 months since I made this post. Many of you cussed the life out of me in the comments, lol. I have been tagged as the cheating opportunist of the century. A lot of people showed their disgust for me, but there were also people that could relate to my desperation. I'm happy to know I am not alone. Nobody is perfect, and I am far from being perfect. I cheated and I regret it, but I don't regret taking the safest option and marrying the man I believed could provide for me. I needed to survive. My marriage could not survive because honestly, I could not see my husband the same way. He stole from me and I cheated on him. We were broken beyond repair. I was left with $200 to survive. I was broke. My husband served me divorce papers 3 weeks later and gave me a month to vacate the apartment. My parents hated me for ruining the marriage that brought them money, so they were not ready to accept another liability. I had to beg a colleague to crash at her place till I received my salary for the month. My child spent the weekend at my place and spent the whole week with her father because I cannot afford to provide for both of us yet. I am no longer with my partner and I am single and undergoing divorce. When you think of a miserable broke woman, think of me. LOL. I'm still trying to get myself back together. It's a process, but I'll get there. Maybe I needed to part with my husband to find my own way in life without taking shortcuts. Thank you to everyone that has taken the time to read my story and speak on it. I'm glad I shared my story with Reddit.
Hey, Reddit, Jack here, navigating life post-divorce at 35. Recently inherited a fortune from my dad. The catch? My ex-wife, Sarah, 35, and I were in the midst of our divorce when this windfall happened. Our 4-year marriage crumbled under financial strain, and she left because I couldn't provide. Now, I'm wrestling with newfound wealth and old wounds. To be truthful, my divorce isn't final yet, and my soon-to-be ex-wife is now begging to be back in my life. She had kicked me out of the house she bought years ago, and she sent me divorce papers a few days later. To the details now, I am the only child of my parents. It's been a funny existence, to be fair. I'm Indian, my parents moved over here, France, before they had me. My dad was, to be honest, I don't even know what he was. All I know is that he was a good father. He was home all the time, didn't go to work, and so did my mom. I always wondered how he was even able to afford what was just a simple existence. When I got older and started to understand how money worked, I occasionally asked him what he did, which meant he was always home. I wanted to know because I wanted to do the same also. I went to government schools from nursery all the way to university, this due to money issues. By money issues, I mean the lack thereof, or so I thought. I had a friend, Sarah, you can already see where this is going. She and I were the only Indians in our school, which didn't mean anything apart from the fact that she and I felt safe in our company. We did everything together as kids, and grew up together. Both of our parents knew each other, and I even heard once or twice that both our fathers worked together. They always encouraged us to have fun, play and do things together, school and otherwise. I remember when things changed, when I was 19. My mother and I went to Bangladesh to visit her parents. We spent 2 months there. It was the best of all the holidays we had gone on in my life. I was happy to be in and around the culture, to go to ceremonies, to see how they said prayers there, and especially to see my grandparents. While I was there, I one day overheard my parents talk about an arranged marriage of some sorts.
Hey everyone. Unfortunately, basically everyone who is watching these videos isn't subscribed. It would mean the world to me to quickly get out of the full screen video for 3 seconds and press that subscribe button. It's free and you can unsubscribe anytime. Sorry for bothering, and thank you so much if you subscribed.
I wasn't clear on the details because I was just walking past when I heard it and I didn't stay to listen. I just continued with my life. So, after the months we spent there, I came home. Sarah had changed. Some of you already know where this is going, but for those who didn't, here's a little rundown. She was always beautiful, something I already knew. For I went to India, she was short, probably 4'11", 5 foot or 5 feet 1 inch. When I came back, she had grown into a stallion. I always had a thing for taller ladies, and I'm pretty tall myself, standing at 5 feet 10 inches. Other things I didn't notice about her started to become more noticeable. She was there when I came home. She and my dad welcomed us home. She brought croissants and a fruit basket with her. She had dressed real nice, like it was an event of some sorts. I won't lie to you, she looked mesmerizing. Like She gave me a passionate hug that lasted a while. We went out that day, anywhere to, as she said. I can't remember where we went that day, some of those places have even closed right now. A few days later, we went to Paris together. We had both decided to take a year off, before going to university. The year off had come to an end and we decided to check out the university we had both applied to and gotten accepted. Paris Sciences et Letters, the PSL Research University, Paris. We had a swell time there. She booked a hotel for both of us. We went to a party that night, stayed till 1 a.m. Then, we went to a nearby restaurant as the only reason we left the party was because Sarah was wasted and hungry. We bought a few things, she paid, and we headed for the hotel we booked. When we got to the hotel, she got undressed in front of me.
Yeah.
Cue massive young boy penal panic. She put on a nightgown and joined me in bed. We had a long drunken conversation, laughed and played board games together. I must admit that when she became more than just a friend to me. I remember wanting to kiss her that day. I couldn't, because she was drunk and it would seem like I was taking advantage of her. Sarah and I waxed stronger as a pair. A few months into uni, I told about my newfound feelings for her and we started dating. We were in the same department and because both our families were close, we were allowed to rent a place off campus together. We were inseparable. Sarah was a bit of a materialistic girl. What do I mean a little bit? She is very materialistic. She also was an only child and her father, unlike mine, flaunted his wealth. To be honest, I'm still trying to figure out what it was they did. She had everything she wanted, her own car at 17, Mercedes-Benz. They had set up a trust fund for her, she had a platinum card and she lavished money at any given chance. Throughout our stay in uni, she paid for the house we lived in. Now, tell me why two students who didn't make any money for themselves would live in a 3-bedroom apartment that had a pool? I sometimes told her she didn't need to spend as much as she did. That we would still survive perfectly if we stayed in a self-contained apartment, if we cooked most of the food we ate, instead of ordering takeout every day. She never listened anyway, her dad funded her lifestyle and she was already spoiled. That was the only downside of being with her. I didn't have money, nor did I have wealthy parents, so I thought, and I didn't like accepting money from strangers, something my parents taught me against. After school we were both 23, I applied for a job as an assistant lecturer in the university which I schooled at. Sarah refused to get a job, stating that her mother was a housewife so she would too. I accepted that fact as I thought it was only fair that I provided for my family, just like my father did. Mind you, we weren't married yet. Fast forward 8 years later, I had become a respectable lecturer in the university. I decided it was time for Sarah and I to get married. We were already dating for 12 years at this point. She was happy to tie the knot with me and her happiness, and mine were the only thing I wanted. We had both agreed that, like our parents, we were going to have just one child and we planned to stay without kids for a while before having children. Having one child was my idea and the waiting till later was hers. We were very compatible and everyone around us saw that. One problem though, a year after we got married, Sarah's father stopped funding her extravagant lifestyle. His words were, "You're now married, so your husband should now cover your expenses. Learn to live by your husband's means." That was good advice he gave her there, and I wish she had heeded it. Of course she didn't, for you can't unspoil a spoiled fruit. It didn't take long for her to start getting frustrated with my situation. My father and hers had tried to lure me into their business, which I didn't join cause it sounded shady. Maybe that was why her father cut her off. She started nagging me, she started denying me time with her, and sometimes we didn't even talk for weeks. It was annoying, how could something so sweet go sour so quick? She even vowed to make my life a living hell. She fulfilled her promise, trust me. I started to hate going home. The lecturer's salary I earned wasn't much, but to me it was an honest living. It was enough to more than take care of both of us and even enough to add a child's expenses. But nope, way, she wanted me to earn $500,000 or more a year so she could have enough money to buy a Maybach every other day. She wanted Chanel purses and Louis Vuitton bags, one of which cost more than I earned in a month. It didn't take long for her to decide she's had enough. At the 3-year mark, as I planned our 3rd anniversary, she changed the locks on the house. It was a big house, one she bought on a whim because she had the money in her trust fund. I swear she really knew how to make a man cry. She kicked me out of the house. The very next day, as I walked into my office in school, there it was, divorce papers. I sat there, deep in thoughts. I didn't know what to say or do, I didn't know how to feel or how to try and fix it. I went home to my dad's. I didn't show up at work for days. I was thinking about how I lost my best friend, my lover and my woman. I stayed home for a while as I tried so hard to get my life together. I started going to the gym. I decided I wasn't going to just let it go easy, cause she wanted a percentage of what I had earned. She cited the fact that we had been together for close to 16 years should count for something, the fact that because of me she didn't work for those long years, which was a lie. I had to go to court. My parents opted to stay out of our little disagreement, as they thought we would settle our dispute. While I was home, my father tried again and again to make me join in his business. He respected the fact that I wanted to teach but wanted me to have a good life. He claimed that working with him would give me just that. I didn't want to join him because I had a bad feeling about it, and also, I felt that staying home all day would definitely not be good for my mental health. At some point my father stopped asking. Just 5 months ago, my father died from what seemed like a heart attack. He was buried days later, as was a part of our culture. His lawyer met me at the burial and told me that his dad had a plan and in a few months he would read me his will. When I got home, I thought about what would be in the will. The house may be a few $1,000s, say $200,000 max. Well. I was wrong as fuck. I saw Sarah at the burial, she looked beautiful. She waved at me and later on came to give her condolences. She then went on to talk about the divorce, saying that due to the loss she would ease up the divorce case. She did as she said though, a real woman of her words, that lady. She rewrote the divorce clauses and I signed them, then I was told that the divorce would be settled in 4 months. Just last month, Sarah called me. She went on a full rant crying profusely as she told me that her father had been arrested. She didn't know why, but that she needed comforting. I was tempted to go see her, but as I put my clothes on and headed over, I was met at my door by my mom and our family lawyer. He had come with the will which he said he'd be bringing. It was a video message and then a bunch of documents that I needed to sign. In the video message my father explained how he was happy that I didn't cave and joined him in his business. He spent a few hours explaining what his business was all about. It's something I can't go into because of how incredibly illegal it was. He then said that he knew he was dying and he opted not to die quietly. He decided he was going to out the whole enterprise. After that he went into talking about his assets. I was wowed. He had millions and he lived life as though he didn't even had anything. He drove a Honda Civic. I laughed, to be honest. He gave the lawyer 1.3 million euros for being loyal. Imagine that. He said he had opened a trust fund for myself, which contained over 10 million euros. He had bought himself an island worth 104 million pounds, the island which now belongs to me. Then he left my mum, according to him, whatever is left after the police is done with them. I signed the documents and got the cards and pins and whatnot. This shit is real, I said to myself. In just an hour, I had gone from having just 12,000 euros in my account to not needing to work a day in my life ever again. Just moments later, my soon-to-be ex-wife called me again, saying that I promised to come and I haven't, so I went over. We spoke at length about how the year has been on her. She complained about not always having money, how her father had slowly started to lose money, how her family house was visited by the police frequently. She said she was going to sell the house and move into something smaller. In the conversation, I let it slip that my dad had left me a huge sum as an inheritance. Her jaw dropped at the realization. Just as we were in our final stage of the divorce, I now have more than enough money to take care of her over-the-top needs. Well, as the title suggests, I started to see a change in her behavior. She started to actively try to slow down the divorce process and started to try to win me back. It wasn't working. I only entertained her bullshit because I feared she could have enough of a claim to my inheritance. She started to come over to my house frequently, started to wear revealing outfits and trying to seduce me. In my head, I know what it's all about. She's figured out that I have money and now she's throwing herself at me. Very gold-diggerish of her. Now this is where I need your help, guys. What would you do if you were in my shoes? Obviously, I'm not taking her back, but should I stop seeing her? What do I do honestly? Update. This chapter of my life, Reddit, is an odyssey of healing and self-discovery. Inheritance became a double-edged sword, cutting through the remnants of a broken marriage while unveiling the resilience of the human spirit. As I move forward, I carry with me the lessons learned from a marriage that crumbled and a heart that learned to mend. I appreciate the help and the kind words. I felt I had to update you guys on how things are right now. The initial post was 3 months ago, and a lot of things have come to light since then. My divorce has been finalized, which is one, so I don't have to see or speak to Sarah except I decide on my own to do so. Secondly, Sarah's father has had his assets and accounts frozen and seized from him. Everything he and my father illegally obtained over the last 40 years were stripped off him. I started to wonder how they didn't even get to me. This was something quite interesting. After they took what they took off my mom, she still had over 787,000 euros, which she decided she would move home to India with. She left just last week. Now on to my wife, or better suiting, ex-wife. When they were done with her family, there was nothing left, just the house they lived in, a few thousand in the bank and the money in her trust fund. Money which she had blown up. Her mother and her fought for weeks. She called me and cried after one of said fights. She cried as she told me she made a mistake, how she should have listened to her father when he told her to be contemptuous with what I could offer, how she should have listened to me when I said she should cool it with the lavish lifestyle. She cried and I listened without saying a word. When she was done, I just put down the phone. I'm planning on moving away from the country before I get found out or anything. I met the lawyer and we talked about the situation on the ground. He assured me that my father had planned for this, and that the inheritance won't be taken away. I have decided I will leave on the 15th of next month. I would retire to the island I got as part of my inheritance. I would hire a few workers, farmers, cleaners, and whatnot. I plan to live in isolation. The simplicity my dad taught me has been well received, and I would pass it on should I get a chance to. I might update this again and I might not. All I need from you guys now is your well wishes. Hope no French police officers are seeing this. I'll be selling the family house as I said. As for Sarah, she now works at a small startup company. I hope for her sake she's learned her lessons. I might see her one last time before I leave. I wish her the best in her endeavors, but a part of me is hoping she gets treated badly in her next relationship. Hope I'm not evil for wishing so? Well, Reddit. That's my life, all written out for you. I hope this doesn't end up on YT.